finish up our last one here, take a look at some of these other ones here, about a few more things we need to worry about, uh, again, with microgravity. So another thing that we would probably have to worry about if we were going to be doing a longer trip in microgravity of some sort is this risk of radiation. Within space, there is quite a bit of solar radiation. Again, different types of radiation, but the kind that is not good for you, so ionizing radiation. Generally, with most everything we're doing here, and I think it's on one of the other sides here, most everything that's been done has been within the magnetosphere of the Earth, or the moon, at least a little bit within that area is one spot where we get a little bit further away. Main thing is that is quite protective of humans. If we were to be going to another planet, such as going to Mars, one of the things you'd have to worry about is the exposure to that. So one of the things, good thickness of these walls and ways to insulate people in these spaceships from some of that. Again, also any outside of the vehicle is going to be an issue. So on Earth, and like I said, and with the moon being close as well, our magnetosphere shields a lot of this radiation from penetrating. If it's not there, like I said, people are definitely be much more exposed to this radiation. And again, prolonged exposure to this, it is an ionizing radiation. It can lead to damage of these cells, make cancer a much more common occurrence by damaging the normal genes of the cells. And again, if it's not repaired, this can be a big problem. Again, what are some of these risks here? Well, obviously, central nervous system, a lot of the different organs, heart, eyes, digestive tract, all have issues that can lead to sterility. Cataracts is a big one with a lot of time and space with those cataracts and changes in eye shape, honestly, with the microgravity. It says here, they're exposed to much more radiation than we encounter on your Earth. But again, with a lot of these things here, this would be a much further time along here. Again, something we need to pay attention to though. And again, one of these things that we have to worry about here is this eyesight. Generally, we've seen a lot of astronauts when they've came back can end up with a lot of times with cataracts, where it damages that lens with that radiation and leads to cataracts after they've been in space. The other thing is, because of these sleep-wake cycles and other stuff like that, when you are in space and in orbit, the sun is coming up and going down about every 90 minutes. Leads to a lot more trouble with sleep. So they tend to sleep poorly in space due to, again, obviously microgravity, but also the change in the light-dark cycles here. Can, again, disrupt that circadian rhythm and become a problem for folks that are in space. Fatigue, obviously, on Earth is a problem. In space, it could be a more serious problem because, again, you're dealing with things that might require a lot more concentration if we're doing something with a spacewalk where a lot of procedures and other things are necessary to be doing that. Another thing is viruses are a little bit more of an issue in space. Stress on the body, a lot of times latent viruses can be activated. Things like Epstein-Barr, chickenpox, make them much more susceptible to infections. This is part of the reason that screening and other things like that are very careful about going and sending people into space. The other thing is you're in a small, closed space that by its very nature cannot be well ventilated because it has to withstand the vacuum of space. So that's another thing that we need to be aware of when we're talking about this. So we've also talked about with recovery and some of the stuff here, when that astronaut comes back from space, we know that their heart has been weakened, they have less cardiac output, the vestibular senses have become used to different signals, we know that their body fluid levels have decreased, their bones are weaker, their muscles are weaker. Is this a big deal? Well, if you're up in space a short period of time, it seems to be reversible. But again, that rebuilding process, the longer you're in space, the more this is going to become an issue. If you were to be in space a long period of time, this could definitely be an issue where somebody that has been in space too long might not be able to return to a gravity-filled environment without a really, really long adjustment period. Like we were saying before, generally blood volume, drinking enough water, their thirst sensors will get turned back on. They will have reduced output of their kidneys at this point, and they will start regaining some of that water. So that is something that's quick. Muscles, a little bit quicker. It's a month or two, but it definitely takes a little bit of time and work within this environment, as well as strength training in order to bring a lot of that back. Like it says here, it's about a day for each day you're in space to get those muscle losses back. Bones are a little bit more problematic. Again, 3 to 6 months space flight might require 2 to 3 years to regain that lost bone density. So again, to maintain that, you have to do a lot of exercise in space, as well as when you return to Earth, and even then it's going to be a much longer time. And you can kind of see this is a much longer space flight. We're looking at longer periods of time to get this back. And this is what I've been kind of talking about here. Someday humans are going to try to, they keep saying, go to Mars. So then they're going to be going to this and then coming to a planet that has 40% of Earth's gravity. In order to be in this microenvironment for many months and then get into this gravitational field, it's going to require folks that had a high level of activity beforehand, are in really good shape, and then are able to maintain that while they are in space. They figure on a lot of this, and this is going to the last point here. Exercise is going to be a key to this. Obviously, exercising in space is a lot different than exercising in Earth. A lot of what we're doing on Earth is using the pull of gravity on weights, on ourselves, in order to provide resistance. You could have a 1,000-pound barbell up in space. It's not going to be particularly difficult to lift. If you were stationary on the ground and moving that from the bottom of the spaceship up, it's not going to be difficult to do. I mean, there still is inertia, and it's going to be easier for you to move than it, but you could do this stuff here. So in space, you have to make up for that lost gravity component. So one of the ways they'll do this is mimic gravity on the cardiovascular system. So those lower body negative pressure things here, where you can have the person get in here and provide a slight vacuum on the lower body, which is going to pull down on the blood there and make the heart and the vessels work a little harder to maintain that normal kind of fitness of your cardiovascular system. Other things here, a lot of times, is you're going to have to use bungees and pulleys to hold people in place and have them do workouts. So pulleys and other stuff like that holds them in there and provides resistance. Again, treadmills have been used in space. And again, anything that they can provide some kind of artificial weight bearing is going to be things that are going to help with loss of that bone density, helping to maintain it a little bit more. Again, obviously, and this is why we keep sending people to the space station, this is doing a lot of the research to figure this out. So if we do intend to do anything longer term, that would be something we'd be able to try to figure out. So if I'm remembering it, I believe this is the last slide here. So really our next stuff here is going to be over what we've done since the last one here. So altitude, cold, and then these couple of specialized kind of physiology things that we've done here. So that is really what we're looking at. I want to say thank you to everybody. I know this has been kind of a difficult semester with some of you doing it in person, some of you doing it separate, and everything else we've been doing with that. I'll try to take one more little video to kind of talk about end of the semester here in terms of what we're looking at, but the final will be during those first few days of finals week, which is December 7th. We'll be working on that stuff to start figuring that out. So I will talk to you later.